I had kind of an interesting moment earlier this week. I was talking to someone, a technologically oriented person, and they asked, "What is Warsmash? Is that like a game mod or something?" This is sort of in a professional context where I just wanted to talk about the technology and things that I've learned, and what did I know and what went into that project, and what that is. So the guy was kind of at first saying, is that just like a Warcraft mod or something? Is Warsmash some type of mod, or what did I actually do? What actually is that? I think it's a really interesting question. I think that if I had a way to describe that to people better, that would be great. So I thought today, why don't I make a little video just talking about what I've been doing and what that is and tries to accomplish. So I guess for starters, we could talk about what is Warcraft and what is the libgdx engine for Java. Those both seem very relevant. So if we talk about things that people do on Warcraft, so for example, here I'll open the official Warcraft type of product. So a lot of the things that I've done on Warsmash have interacted with old versions of Warcraft. So if you get like new versions of Warcraft, they have that on Battle.net, and then it's a whole other thing with Reforged. But if we just look at like an old version for now, let me try running that. So I guess a lot of times you can only run the old version if you edit your registry to delete Reforged out of it. That's just one of those things. They do the new stuff now where they try to they go in the registry and they try to block you from running the old stuff. So let me just fix that really fast. Should be in Blizzard Entertainment World Edit. Yeah, one of their developers leaked that if you actually just want to run the old sort of good version before all the Reforged changes, you just delete Tool Windows tag over there, and that should probably fix it. So you do that, then you run the world editor, and then it'll actually work. It sort of unblocks it from Reforged. Sorry, that's just a random distraction. But anyway, yeah. So here's this is Warcraft III in 2009 as it was then, basically. And you can put these little mini people, and you have like this nice map editor. And this is just a video game you just buy from Blizzard Entertainment. And you click like test on that, and it'll like play it and stuff. And so it's kind of fun, you make your own little world. And after doing that for a long time, there's people on the Hive Workshop that had this idea that wouldn't it be convenient if I'm gonna be drawing one of these little worlds inside of Warcraft here in this whole game, wouldn't it be really convenient if I could go to the resources models section, and maybe I want to download something over here. Here you go. Somebody called Gluma has made this crossbowman. Or maybe I want to know if this crossbowman is going to look good when I dump him in my game or not. And so somebody made this View in 3D button. And this is not affiliated with the company that made the original game. This is somebody's project. But it lets you actually render the little game character right there in your web browser, so you can see, what would this guy look like? And so if we talk about, what is that? How does that program actually work? When this game was made, they used their own 3D model format. So you can't just like dunk this model into Unreal Engine and start running it. I mean, there's going to be people who know how to do that, who have converters, but the original files themselves, like if I try to download this crossbowman that some guy on the internet made for fun, and we put this in my downloads folder, like we're going to see that what's going on here with this file once it actually downloads. Here we go. Unzip. You'll see how this is relevant in a moment. Okay, cool. So this file right here is an MDX file. And it's a binary. If you try to open that in like Notepad or something, that won't work. This is literally a binary downloaded file. There's a bunch of stuff in here. And the contents of this file, the formatting that's used, was invented by Blizzard Entertainment back in the 2000s or whatever. So that is this kind of custom format, and so they use a lot of their custom code to do that. So we had these people building this kind of this viewing technology, and the guy that made this viewing technology, he was a little bit crazy, but he was being kind of ambitious. And one of the things that he created, if we go to viewer.hiveworkshop.com, I don't know if that many people know this. Maybe some people know this, but so there's a normal Hive Workshop website, and it's this kind of fancy Warcraft modding site. But in sort of a side URL, in a subdomain, viewer.hiveworkshop.com, we have what is titled, and I don't know if you can see this title, we have Ghost Wolf's Garbage Bin. And in Ghost Wolf's Garbage Bin, one of the things that we have, if I click on it here, is a map viewer. And this has been here since like 2018 or maybe 2019. But what this does, again, inside of my web browser, is it uses his same code. And he had been brainstorming, similar to how convenient that is to just view a model file in the browser. Wouldn't it be cool and convenient if you could just view an entire Warcraft map? Like if I'm drawing something here, and I've got my guys that I was making in this map editor. And obviously this map might get more complicated. You could put grass and terrains and trees and other things and all sorts of stuff, whatever goes in your Warcraft map. And if you save that, let's say I would say like, all right, I'm going to save this map, put it somewhere. It looks like it's going to save the downloads folder right now. That's probably fine. Let me just call this example map in my downloads folder. So in the meanwhile, I'm trying to see, did this thing actually load over here? This is interesting. Actually, usually for me this does load, and so I'm not entirely sure if it doesn't right now what would have happened to cause that. But let's try. Let's go to my downloads folder, and we'll go to example map, and we'll just drag that onto this. And see this, yeah. Okay, this is what I was trying to get. So this is really interesting. So this is just Hive Workshop technology. I mean, it's just there on their website. But you can see this map I was drawing. I just dropped that in, and now I can view the world. You can see the player start location down there and all of these things. And this is all just possible as a WebGL app. And so the thing that's really cool about this WebGL app that this guy was making, and I think at some point he stopped working on this, but back in late 2018, kind of 2019, he had this prototype running, and I thought that's really cool because he had essentially taken his technology for rendering a model that you might preview in the models section on this website, and he had changed it so that he could display many models at a time. And so, I mean, this is just a custom WebGL app made by a really dedicated fan, but he actually put his entire code public on the internet on GitHub. So if we go to, now I think his username is backwards, so you'll have to forgive me for a second while I try to process in my head how to spell Ghost Wolf backwards. MDX M3 viewer, this thing. So literally the licensing is MIT licensed. He published it for the whole world, very free license to do whatever you want with. He's noted on it it's no longer actively maintained, so you can tell, he's kind of, in some sense, to stop doing things. And it looks like a year ago, the last change he did was some pull request for me when I was like, why don't you fix this or that? But basically, he created this repo, and it's a very cool project, right? I mean, so you can essentially preview your entire Warcraft map in a browser, and that already existed. So Warsmash for me, and how that came about, what am I doing, was the combination of, I was looking at this game technology, and I realized, I don't know if other people saw this, but if we go to, I could probably just hop on like YouTube or something, and if I type in Reforged announcement trailer or something like this, this is a cinematic trailer, but I think there was, 5 years ago, something like this. So they had this trailer that showed up in 2018, and Activision said, look at this, we're going to make new Warcraft. And it looks pretty cool if you look at it, right? Like, okay. It seemed like they're having a lot of fun. But in particular, if we watch right here, and I think this part was key. If we watch this paladin, the new version of this paladin's model, this was a key for me. When they announced this in 2018, if you look at this paladin, you can see there is a metal shine on his armor. Okay, metal shine on his armor. So notably, when we look at that file and we look at the metal shine on his armor, and I think they actually said this in their online BlizzCon streaming that year, the metal shining is produced by a different rendering technology. So what was evident to me, and this is from the moment that this thing was announced, what was evident to me is that they're talking about a different rendering technology. So pretty much from 2018, when Activision said they were going to work on this, I realized that as someone who enjoys modding Warcraft 3, I can tell that this isn't. And what I mean by that, here we see it again. Look at this guy's armor. You see the sun sort of reflecting off of his shoulder pad and his armor here. Warcraft 3 means different things to different people. So to me, when I go in this editor and I doodle some little people in a little world here, and then I think about how convenient it is that a human being spent the time writing this. I mean, do we have TypeScript? So this, looking at this guy's repo I was just talking about, it's 89% TypeScript. I'm curious if they would give me a line count on that, and it looks like they probably will not. Yeah, I don't. So I'm not sure if there's a way. Insights, maybe insights. Code frequency. Probably going to tell me there's no data, and he hasn't committed in 3 years. For some reason, after Reforged, the person who built this repo seems to have vanished off the face of the map. Anyway, so fundamentally, the guy spent years, like the fan of the game spent years and years building this. And in all of that time, I mean, if you think about, so like when these paladins, lift their hammers over their shoulder or whatever, you see the hammers glowing like that. And so how does that glow actually work? And there are a bunch of programs that do this wrong. So one of the things that a lot of people use on Warcraft is called War 3 Model Editor. And this is a really old program somebody made, but I want to say, do I have this where it'll just load? Yeah, okay, I have this where it'll just... So if I go into Human Paladin and I open up this same character, and I feel like this is partly my example of... I mean, the War 3 Model Editor is a program that people use on Hive Workshop and have been using for an extremely long time. And this is another piece of fan software, but this one was written in 2005. And so this one, it has an animation controller. And you'll notice, if I do that same animation of the Paladin when he puts his... Was it stand 3? Yeah, here we go. Where he puts his hammer on his shoulder. Even by 2005, 3 years after this game had released, the people who were actually trying to render the game characters had no idea how to do it. And you can see that when you look at his hammer, that even in this fan program that's used all the time, the little glows on his hammer are just jumping all over the place. And part of the reason for that is that the... sorry, we jumped back over here. The way that this glow works, if you can see it there, is it's literally just a flat... It's two triangles in the geometry. It's two triangles on his hammer. And the two triangles are linked against the animation node so that they always face the camera. And so when this guy made his own fan software to try to reproduce, render something that looks as though it was a character from this game, but render one at a time, he didn't know how to get that math right. You have to figure out what is the vector between the point animation node and the camera, and then you have to take the triangles and spin it to face that vector. And yet, although that would be straightforward with a square set of triangles, there are other files that do that regardless. So I think, for example, I wonder if, do we have some of the items? There are a few models in the game that operate similarly and spin to always face the camera with a more complex shape. And so at some level, if you're going to emulate that, you can't just look at one sample and try to build to that sample. You sort of have to simulate the entire system. And there are various things that do that, and it'll depend on the different sort of file. So, for example, I'm trying to think of one. Sometimes they work differently. Oh yeah, like this guy. So how about this guy's sword? So his sword is interesting in that it's doing something similar. His sword is glowing from all angles. But if we go and look at his sword in here, again, this is not... it's not even the same. There were multiple implementations of this code that had to be emulated. So this guy's sword, if you actually look at it, and this is not going to work right in this program. Yeah, look, see, in this program, his sword is... The glow is perpendicular. It doesn't even try. And part of the reason for that is that his sword, you can see here, this is one long glow object along the length of the sword. And so it isn't camera facing. It's actually only camera facing on like one axis, that it spins around the length of the sword, but if the sword shortens, it'll shorten and flatten out, and suddenly you can realize that, look at, even in the game itself, it's a little flat plane. But you don't normally see that from above, because it spins around the axis of the sword. And that's a different piece of code than this guy's hammer, which is just always facing camera no matter where it goes. And so there are these things that sort of figuring out how to do them is sort of wastefully time-consuming. When the end user of these sorts of software is not going to appreciate that at all. The time that goes into that, because obviously it's a reinvention of the wheel. Activision already figured out how to do that. Well, I guess before Activision was around maybe, but Blizzard, the Blizzard company back in 2002 figured out how to do that when they built the game. And when people try to emulate that, when somebody builds a fan technology like this renderer in a browser, they spend oodles and oodles of time trying to match that behavior. And a lot of times they don't even get it right. I wouldn't be surprised, maybe if I make 4 of these guys with their swords facing different directions, and then I resave this file and we upload it back into this browser app, you will see probably, I could be wrong, but probably it won't look correct in all angles. Yeah, here we go. So how are we doing on that? Okay, I spoke too soon. It actually looks really good. But, okay, so it looks pretty good, but from directly above, you can see like there the glow is disappearing on this guy. So that points out basically to my point that even the guy who was trying to build this entire map viewer and who spent years and years of his life trying to get it right, even he didn't get this sword right. And these are things that the people in the hobby sphere iterated on from 2002 until 2018, when Reforged announced all this stuff. And so it was evident to me from the moment that the company running this said, well, here's our new version, here's what we're going to build. And they're trying to, get the investors, get the buy-in with the sort of promotional stuff. That's great. There's a lot of people who are going to enjoy that. But from my standpoint, what does Warcraft 3 mean? And for me personally, my hobby of creating things in this game editor, modding this game, was based around sort of like oversimplified game graphics in an oversimplified, hacked together game system. One of the original descriptions of how this game came to be was that it came to be in a course of about 3 months or something, that the company was developing World of Warcraft, and then somebody said, well, wait a minute, why don't we make an RTS, pretty much? And so they used the render program from World of Warcraft, and then they just looked back at how StarCraft was and shoveled stuff in, and they created this kind of RTS game that has sort of RPG game elements in it, and so you've got weird, different, crazy stuff going on. And, I mean, ultimately, it's so confusing, the users hardly enjoy it. You get broader appeal by deleting most of the game out, automating all of the little mini people, these little foot soldiers and stuff, and then having people just play as the hero character, and that's basically Dota. So the next evolution of this game that came after it was sort of dumbing it down and eliminating half of the game. I mean, it's like you're trying to play StarCraft and Diablo at the same time, or something like that in this game. It's a kind of silly game, this old Warcraft 3. And so, because it was hacked together like that, it's kind of frozen in time, it was from 2002 to 2018 when they announced that stuff. So you had kind of 16 years of frozen in time on an old system, and people would make characters, and they would make cool, great-looking 3D files within the confines of 2002's technology, and 2002's technology cannot render this. Like, it's not a matter of not knowing how. I mean, it's not that I'm a bad artist and somewhere else there's a good artist who knows how to render this. Fundamentally, in the format that this game imports, there are triangles and there are textures wrapped on those triangles, and it mostly stops there with a little bit of wizardry like camera-centric triangles, and I guess something else you might be wondering, when we look at this guy's the glow on there, is that the glow is doing a mathematical color sum against what's behind it, which causes black areas to sort of be a fade instead of the black square or something. And there were some different blend functions that were in use back in these days. And I guess to kind of speak to that, certainly if this wasn't clear to someone watching this video right now, you can use the same blend function with a solid object. And so if we look at this Naga orb right here, this is, again, 2 triangles in a square that face the camera in this Naga altar orb. But those two triangles that always face the camera are the texture that's layered over them, rather than being a additive blend function where we sum its color against what's behind it, like honestly the glow around it. The center portion there, that's just this kind of bauble-shaped thing, is its own texture that has an alpha channel, and so it's just deleting out part of it, and then the other part is solid, even if it's dark. Like even you can see, even at this angle, it almost turns solid black, but it doesn't disappear. Whereas the sort of bluish glow, or maybe teal, whatever you call that, tealish glow around that thing, is a color sum, where if you just think about what is the mathematics that you would use to display that, we're just adding the color of that texture to the color of what was behind it. So there were a couple of sort of enhancements in place in 2002 technology like that, but for the most part, the trees are triangles. The ground here is just a bunch of triangles. Here you can actually hit Control-T and you can see the triangles of the ground. And so the world was mostly repetition of a simple technology. And it's sort of like, there are some people that build computers in Minecraft. I've never personally done that, but you sometimes would wonder, well, why does someone build a computer in Minecraft? If you actually just build a computer, it's going to run better, like a real-life computer, than a computer in Minecraft. So what is the reason to do that? And is it perhaps ridiculous and stupid to do that? And I think there are a lot of people that would have that opinion, that would say, well, you should always use the latest and greatest technology, because if you do that, you're just going to have a better end product, where better is some metric, and that metric is perhaps how well it approximates real life, as opposed to some other metric. And I think in some way, modding Warcraft for those 16 years from 2002 to 2018 eventually became a little bit like people building computers in Minecraft, that in some sense, obviously anyone who would be doing it would know that there is a technology somewhere that can render things that look like this, that we have systems for making better games, but they would decide that within the confines of this, maybe you have a high efficiency, a fast turnaround time to just drafting something in a simpler system, could be one advantage. Or they just, enjoyed, sort of for the heck of it, the fun of taking something they had used years before and sort of over-tuning their mind to creating things inside of an old system, instead of, being a system builder who has to put together a newer system or having to deal with that. And so I came to enjoy that, a world where this program, this is a fan-based model viewer that was made in 2005, and the guy who made this in 2005, by the time 2008 rolled around, he stopped updating it. And so this is, this is an ancient binary. We don't have the source code to this binary, so I don't personally use it very much anymore, but a lot of people on modding sites still use it. And that's 16 years old now, just this guy's fan program, now in 2024, but back then, by 2018, it was still 10 years old. So basically, there was this kind of weird combination of technological stagnation in Warcraft 3 combined with people innovating within the confines of that. And sometimes that's fun. If you... it's an interesting thought in terms of creativity to try to figure out... if you made a new thing, is there something fascinating about it if you limit what you're making to an older subset of things? Like if you say, make a game that runs on a Game Boy Advance in 8 bits or something. Like, obviously, not very many people are going to do that, but there are some people in the world who enjoy doing something, even if it's a little bit different like that, where you take something older and then you restrict yourself to the limits of that older system, and then you try to figure out, well, what can you make within that system? And would that be sort of novel to make things within that system? And I think basically in 2018, when Activision announced that they were making this, it became evident to me that their target audience are not the people who were doing this for 16 years. So basically, they were announcing from that moment that they were throwing out There's something like 10,000 custom model files you could download here on Hive. I mean, people would make all this stuff, you know, like, oh, look at this turtle cannon with cargo or something, you know, and this is pretty cool. It's a turtle with a cannon on the back. This is not an original part of the game. So the turtle was originally in the game. We can see that actually right here. There's a turtle, and there's blue and green turtles in the game too. So they didn't do this turtle color. It's using an original game turtle color. But this guy has painted his own big cannon on the back of the turtle and styled it to look like some kind of I don't know, you know, overseas architecture kind of style on the back there. It looks pretty cool. But in all of that happening, there were years and years and years. You know, 16 years of people. Within the confines of that format, trying to achieve novel customizations while limiting themselves to what existed, and not asking the question, you know, what is today's greatest and top-of-the-line technology that you could possibly shovel into a game if you're going to redesign it all today? So, I guess this has been a pretty long video already, but this is my way of giving you the problem statement of what was I trying to do in 2018? When I thought to myself, I'm going to make something called Warsmash. What is that? So if we go to my Warsmash GitHub page, realistically, I called it Warsmash Mod Engine. Now, why did I do that? Why is it called Warsmash Mod Engine? Partly, by calling it Mod Engine, I kind of thought it would fly under the radar so that people wouldn't spend a lot of time thinking about what it is. I'm a little bit more direct about that in the description here, where I say this is a Warcraft III emulator made using libgdx game engine. So my conclusion, when I realized that, you know, there's some software is proprietary, and that means the software doesn't give you permission to change it. So on a fundamental level, a child could open this map editor and could think to themselves, you know, I am great. I can build the turtle army. I have made all the turtles. And then click play, and you'd play a game with your turtle army and go on a big battle with the turtle army and have a lot of fun and just feel good about yourself. At some point, there is the reality that this program is proprietary software, and so that means that when someone is making something in this map editor, or if they hit a wall where they think, you know, I would actually really like for my turtles to be able to burrow underground to the underground universe and have another map underground where the turtles are, and then come back up something else, and you start to indent these things, and you realize, well, you know what, maybe that isn't in the code, that there isn't a way to do that. A lot of times then what people do is, again, this idea of creating something within the confines of what was there, they would come up with some sort of novel idea of perhaps, you know, jumping the camera around and pretending that you have two maps or something else, but they sort of fight against the system. And there's a lot of that. Most of the content that is created kind of optimized for accomplishing things instead of optimizing for what is the best thing you could ever create. And so as time went on with that for the 16 years of this original game, you know, the 3D models are fun, but there's also people who make a ton of custom maps in this game. And so the people making custom maps frequently would create systems that they put into their maps that were weird ways to design software, but it was all based on the idea that you have this foundational proprietary layer that you could never evolve forward. You could never improve it. You could never fix something. If something was broken, it just pretty much stayed the same for most of those 16 years. And so you would kind of create what you could create within that system. And there were tons of options of what that would be. You know, there was an object editor where you can go and you can say, hey, you know what, actually, I want to go to this dragon turtle. I want to click copy, and I want to make a new one called My Super Green Turtle. You know, My Super Green Turtle. And the proprietary software operated off of these property maps where it basically allowed you to do that. And there's probably, yeah, sea turtle. Okay, that isn't actually the green turtle, but what's the other turtle called? So then there's not a search function. No one could ever add a search function. You could never iterate on your world editor to make a search function. It's totally slipping my mind. The non-sea turtle, giant sea turtle. Okay, great. So we pretty much, you know, you just go up here and you copy giant sea turtle and you paste that on this guy and he turns green. And you're like, okay, that's cool. Now I can go into the custom section and we find out I copied the wrong one. So the game originally had two different dragon turtles and I copied the wrong one. But anyway, my point is, okay, look, now there's green turtles. So I copied a big one. So then if you were like, oh, it's too big, I didn't want it that big, you change the size number. Doop, now it's a little bit smaller. So there's all these things you could do in the original proprietary software. And that's sort of enticing for some people, but it's proprietary software, so you can't ever fix it. It never moves forward. And the people who hold the keys, who make it that way, who can move it forward, made the decision that they're doing this. And so that means that basically what they're doing is trying to throw in the garbage the 16 years of fan space, of creative fans who had been making custom models or custom maps that use those models. Obviously, if you make a new custom map, so let's say I'm over here and I wanted to import the model we started off looking at here. If I go back to custom models and we say, here's this crossbowman, or even, here we're looking at that turtle. Let's pull that turtle up again with the cannon on the back. So in just the same way I was just showing we can turn my turtle green, you can download this turtle with the cannon on the back, and in a couple of clicks, extract it, and you pop back in your world editor, and you go to your import system. And this is all just the proprietary software. But sure, so let's say I get Pandaren Cannon Turtle 2, and there's an old bug in this that you had to save the game before you could view the file in the original map editor. That's stupid. Why is that? But that's how it was. Cool. So now my turtle is the turtle with the cannon on the back. I mean, that's cool. And that's just from downloading off of this website, and I just dunk it into the game. I mean, that's efficient and fun. And so, there was thousands and thousands of these people who had made custom models like this. And my impression in 2018 was pretty much that, by and large, the company in charge of this game wanted to get everyone excited about throwing the creativity of all those custom models in the garbage. That's their selling point, is that people who created custom content on this game for 16 years, we're going to make their content garbage and outdate all of it. That's the change that we're going to make. A lot of these other things in the editor that were wrong, they're not going to fix that, but they're going to fix getting rid of the custom content, making it new again by using this new format. And it had to be a new format from the moment that they showed this video because of the metallic sheen on the armor. They're literally selling it on the fact that it is a different computer program than this computer program. So that was evident to me in 2018. And so for me, the problem statement, what is Warsmash, came from the fact that I don't really want someone else to be able to decide that they will eliminate my hobby. I know that my lifespan is limited. Ultimately, our hobbies can't go on forever. But I was a small child in 2002, 2003, and I enjoyed dinking around in this proprietary editor. And I find that I sometimes, whether a year goes by, 2 years go by, eventually I enjoy coming back to this technology and being able to draft something. Like today, I was like, here, I've made the turtle army. That's kind of fun. There are probably people who would tell me that, well, you should throw out your hobbies. You should always change. And when you're 50, you're not going to want to be able to make the turtle army unless if you make it in Unreal Engine, because that's the only way to make turtle armies or something. And there's a place for that. If you're trying to get something done and be pragmatic, humans are always moving forward. Technology is always moving forward, and this game is not. So I appreciate that there is a place for that. And there are some people who want to do that. I looked at it from the standpoint that I had some internet correspondence with the guy who built this. I think that that's cool what he was doing. I think that there are ways of moving technology forward without throwing out everything that you did along the way. I think that is something that can be done and is kind of fun. So partly my goal was to try to invent a way that I can know that I have that. And obviously at any point in time, and I knew this the whole time I was doing it, so a lot of times I try to look at Warsmash as enjoying the journey rather than being totally sure that I would get to some destination. It's always the case that people's lives change. Something might change in my life. Something might happen where, I fall on hard times, and there's just no way that I would have the time to do this kind of hobby. That might happen. It's possible. But to the extent that I ever want the ability to come back, essentially in my mind, I wanted to create a system for ensuring that possibility, that I always could come back. And one of the interesting things that seemed to be part of the issue with that is that a lot of people have made spin-off editor programs that edit parts and pieces of game maps and other things like that. So there are a lot of technology, if you really get into it, for a lot of technologies for controlling the user-created content. But the most limiting thing, and the thing that I think is perhaps was in 2018 seemed to me to be a more limiting factor than just the editor, which, there was like hacked editors people run, and you create custom content off of an editor that has more features, and then you load your content in the game. The more limiting factor seemed to me to be the game itself. That you would always bump back into this problem that no matter what kind of editor I make, no matter how I innovate on my computer, as long as the common element agreed upon between I and somebody that I would play multiplayer with is the game itself, we're always constrained by whatever Activision has decided to do or not do with the game itself. So I sort of had this idea back then in 2018. I already had seen this guy build this really cool WebGL viewer of maps. And there was another thing that had been going on in my life that I haven't really described until now, which is the idea of moving away from Warcraft III. So, we talk about proprietary technology. Obviously, that's kind of bad when you have something that cannot evolve, that you cannot evolve it no matter what you do because it is stuck in the 2002 version or some slight modified version of that the guy who modified it, his motivations were getting his Activision paycheck, and so he was trying to, tweak something that keeps the money flowing or something like that. That it's not a technologist whose goal is just better and better technology while staying within some sort of, confined goal. Like maybe you say the confined goal is using the same 3D format, the same 3D characters, but smarter and smarter game logic and functions and something. I mean, you could sort of create whatever restrictions you want, but in my head, the restrictions to Activision are probably not good because they're proprietary. So anyway, probably where I'm going with that is I had used an open source game engine to build sometimes my own games. And a lot of the time that I was doing that, I was primarily doing that in 2 dimensions. So if we move to talking about that a little bit, and we look at libgdx, something that I had been doing 2016, 17, back in those kind of times, was using libgdx for things. It turns out this is pretty nice. There's people making games on this, and you look at this, and almost most of the games getting made on libgdx are 2D games. I guess this one kind of looks like Minecraft. Delver by Priority Interrupted. Oh yeah, here they are on Steam. So look at that. So that's a 3D game. So that's kind of fun. So this is an interesting reminder that libgdx is capable of 3D, even though a lot of the use cases are 2D. So I've been doing some stuff with libgdx, and it's pretty easy to set up. Now while I'm talking, why don't we make a libgdx game or a project? Start on something. Talk about where did Warsmash come from. So documentation. Let's see, documentation. Getting started. Let's click on getting started over here. All right, set up a dev environment. So they suggest that people use IntelliJ. I've been using a lot of Eclipse. Let's see. Yeah, so if I'm going to use Eclipse, one of the things you have, skip to the next step, generate a project. So this is another fun thing. So when somebody actually creates these types of things, here we go, I'm going to download this program. And obviously, whenever you download and run a program, you want to look at who it came from. Tedinger here is actually a person I've had some correspondence with on Discord. And it was making. There used to be, when Warsmash was created, I didn't use this particular program called GDX Liftoff. I think I used one called GDX Setup that was an earlier version made by the GDX team instead of Tedinger, like we just saw on GitHub. But I would say either way, the concept of libgdx has been very similar for a long time, which is pretty much that you have a fairly straightforward project generator, and so you just kind of go in here and say, all right, let me just open up. Let's see, we'll grab this thing in my downloads folder here. GDX liftoff. Okay, cool. So we run this program. This is a program that generates games. So then you say, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, cool. So you can look at that. So I apparently created something called RTS2D last time I ran this, and it remembered. But what do we want to make? Let's just make sample game. Sample-game. And then Java usually has a package system for how they name things. It's kind of like reverse URLs. So if I imagine that I'm redera.org, I can be sample.game.redera.org, and then flipped is like org.redera.game sample. And the main class is called GDX fun main. Sure, this can be GDX sample game name, something like that. And then I think we have project options. So then you can say, what do you want to support? So you can choose the platforms to support. And you can run these games on Android, iOS, desktop, whatever. I just did desktop when I did this. I guess there's secondary platforms, so maybe there's other ways you can try to run it on some other types of systems. I pretty much just kept Warsmash to desktop because that's easy for me to do. Sometimes they also use Scala and Kotlin, sort of like... it's like using, for Warcraft people, maybe it's like using VJS with Jazz. But basically, these are like languages that transpile to Java or Java bytecode. And so it's like if you want to have other syntax features, you can use some of that. I didn't bother to do that on Warsmash. I kept it simple, just using Java. You can get other extensions like free type for fonts. I use that on Warsmash. It's pretty nice. Lets you take a TTF font and turn it into text on the screen, so you can have nicely formatted fonts. There's also things like Box 2D for 2D physics engine, Bullet for 3D physics engine. So you kind of go in here and say, okay, what kind of systems do you want? But on Warsmash, notably, I didn't use the 2D physics engine here for Warsmash. I kind of rolled my own on a lot of stuff. So I used FreeType. That just makes sense. I'm not going to reinvent the TrueType font format, but I don't think I had very many extensions on top of that loaded in Warsmash. And I added some custom things that weren't in the sort of auto-suggest here, but for the most part, that was about it. So, I think I generated some of that in Warsmash, and you click through some of these menus, and you figure out your Java versions and other stuff. I think Warsmash is using Java 17 now. There's kind of an interesting thing. I started on 8, and then some contributor showed up and said, oh, you got to use 17, and I just kind of went with it. But apparently you can start with GUI assets if you want to do that. That's kind of fun. You can basically decide where to put your game. And that can be wherever you want. Let's say if we were in the same downloads folder for the time being, we're just going to have generated game example as some folder. You basically pick a folder and then you click generate. And so the idea then is this creates a project. And then you can go to some code editor like Eclipse, and that is how Warsmash came to be for the most part. Was one of these project generators in that kind of thing. So a lot of times I make a workspace for Eclipse that isn't quite the same folder, but it's a similar folder, just because Eclipse tends to like doing that. But yeah, so. How did Warsmash come to be? I had been making 2D games in libgdx like this, and I thought, can't I just use the libgdx container for like the user interface while going beyond and using the WebGL, this guy's WebGL map viewer, as the scene of what we see. And so we have like the WebGL of what we see, and we have the game logic of sort of 2D game programming for the behavior of what happens. And could we combine that and have like a fun thing? And if that, basically my goal was, if that fun thing approximates Warcraft, then I would not ever want to play Warcraft again. So, for the most part, once you generate one of these things, a lot of the stuff's pretty automatic to open a project, which is one of the fun things. I already had the code editor installed that knows how to do this, but you can use Eclipse, you can use IntelliJ, basically anything that's good at Java. It'll automatically download some dependencies, but it's pretty good. So that was kind of my thinking when Warsmash started, was to do something like this. And what this gets you, when this generates, you get a launcher. And it's opening for a second here. Yeah, okay, so here's like a desktop application launcher. We can click run on it. I don't think it'll work the first time. Oh, it does work the first time. How fun is that? So, this is like an OpenGL window here, rendering in a game. And what makes it a game, of course, is what you put in that window. So then you have sort of the core project. It sort of generates. Sometimes they would call it desktop. I think more recently they call it LWJGL3, but that's just OpenGL bindings in Java, basically. So you have your OpenGL bindings in Java, and then you have this kind of simplified layer on top where you can just say, oh, I want a sprite batch. Oh, load a texture. Draw that texture at pixel coordinate 14210. And you know what? We could change that so it's not 14210 and put it at 0, 0. And then you'll see, now the image is in the bottom corner. So we know that, Y is up and X is to the right. And there's your libgdx logo. Now I moved it. And you could do some logic where you say like, oh, well, what about every time the game renders, we have some X coordinate that starts off at 0, and then we draw this thing at X++. And so not only do we have it, but it's like animated, like, libgdx just moves along the bottom. And that's kind of the basis, if you think about this render function getting called over and over, and a 2D game system like that, where you've got this constantly render function called thing that's happening, and then you're rendering something, and then you can move that thing that you're rendering. So Warsmash started like that, and I pretty much had this idea that even though it was silly, I was getting tired of what Activision was doing, and I wanted to just have my own path of using the same paradigms, constraining myself to more or less the same simple rendering, while moving in a way that is my own direction, that would presumably start out as trying to emulate all of the systems of the game itself, but also kind of taking a step beyond that, perhaps to where I can change things that we could have never customized before. So that led to Warsmash, and for the most part, that's kind of the problem statement and what the technology is. It's my attempt to emulate and sort of rewrite the Warcraft III game on the code side, while aiming to use the same 3D files, so that I don't have to worry about somebody telling me that what I enjoy doing is going to be destroyed. So Warsmash, and I could talk for a second about what I'm doing here, because this is kind of dumb. There's a bug in this Eclipse IDE, and every time I open Warsmash, I have to go in the menus and fix something. But Warsmash has a couple more projects. So you can see, similar to when I just generated that default project, and there was kind of a core thing, and then like a desktop bindings, LWJGL. Warsmash was generated with a little bit earlier version of some of the same stuff. And so it has over here, I'm not sure if you can read this, maybe I can make it bigger for the viewers, but it has the desktop project over here in the corner. So that's, again, kind of this automatically generated desktop binding. And then I went and created a couple of more independent project folders, sort of modules, whatever you want to call those. I think Eclipse tended to call them projects, and IntelliJ tended to call them modules. But sort of these folders with a bunch of code in them that implement different components of what you end up using. And so as I went through making Warsmash, obviously, it started off, I think I have a video somewhere. I guess this opened twice. I have a video somewhere where I was literally talking to a guy about how I wanted to do this in 2019, and I went on the generated project in libgdx, and I just made it, instead of that libgdx logo, that it was loading a Warcraft texture file. And even that's time-consuming. Warcraft textures are stored in their own Warcraft format. So there was somebody who'd already written a Java library for that. So I guess that's another thing that I was kind of doing along the way, is portions of Warsmash are based on the technology side in how I already had a program that would kind of load and resolve Warcraft assets for editing models. So similar to how I had talked a little bit about this guy's thing, this really old. We gotta jump the fit to screen back. Here we go. Cool. So similar to how I talked about this guy's program. really at the time back whenever that I was starting to think about Warsmash, I had also been working on the side on kind of this type of thing, and this has changed since then, but if we try to look at maybe how it looked back then, sort of my own program that could view and render game characters. And so this kind of thing, this is a Java program I'm running out of Eclipse, and it's not generated with libgdx. It's just something I had created. And so that has its own history where I was trying to see, can I interact with Warcraft characters from Java software? And I've done a little bit of that. I've rendered sort of one character at a time in the context of a sort of editor program. And that's kind of fun. That was a pretty good time. But that, I think, also helped inspire me to think, hey, if I can render this, I can probably render a lot of units at a time from inside of Java. So one of the interesting things, I guess, about this program is that the original, the things that I had created, the early versions of my software that I used to edit models started in high school in 2011, maybe 2012, kind of 2011, 2012, as a program for just editing these sort of vertices. You can just like change the guy and get a little different shape, and obviously, you might get a pretty stupid shape if you're not careful, but it's sort of a fun thing to do, to go in here and maybe if you have a program where you can just grab the character's head and move it around, maybe you can replace it with a different character's head, and so you can make the head of one character on the body of another, or give him a sword of another guy, and sort of just hash things together that way. So I've been doing that for several years in my own hobby software. And I sort of had this realization that I could combine some of that to make building Warsmash go even faster. So one of the things that we see in Warsmash is that for parsing like Warcraft textures, I pretty much just parse it the same way as this model editor that I had made, which has changed names in 2018. It used to be called Matrix Eater, and then at some point I just called it Redera Model Studio because I use the internet username Redera, and so by doing that, more people, if they have bugs, would just kind of like report it to me. It seemed logical at the time. But anyway, basically the idea of Warsmash was shoveling out pieces of how this loads assets into a system created for making games, with layered on top of that this guy's model viewer. And so my idea was, by throwing all of those together, I would get to a technology stack that should, in theory, allow me to have the fun of simulating the game of Warcraft, but where it's a simulation, it's not the game itself, and so every single component of that game from top to bottom is non-proprietary software that I can change. And so ultimately that concept, that effort to try to achieve that, I would say was largely successful. So if I launch like the current state of that, and running my technology that I've been building on the weekends for the last 4 or 5 years at this point, there's kind of a longer loading time because I'm loading a bunch of assets off a spinning disk hard drive of mine. So like if I ran Warsmash on a Linux computer, we're just running purely off of an NVMe hard drive, and it doesn't take this long to load. In that case, it loaded almost instantly, which was really cool to see. But right now it's loading slowly because I'm loading off the side. But you can see it has a loading screen. It kind of looks like Warcraft. For a long time, I didn't even bother with the loading screen. It didn't work right. But more recently, I've tried to make it actually load. And I don't know what map this is set to play right now, so we might get any manner of crazy map, or maybe it'll crash. But that was kind of my thinking. And so as time went on, well, yeah, it crashed because I was testing with some script system changes at one point. So talking about that a little bit, these other projects I created, at this point, everything I just described was the problem statement of when I started making Warsmash. But over the years from 2020 to now, there's a server, so I can have somebody host a game and somebody else join a game and play a multiplayer simulation of that. There's like the JAS parser, which was generating using ANTLR. So this, I pretty much just invented my own. This is interesting the way that this has a bunch of tabs here. But yeah, all right. I don't know if I can make this larger. Yeah, okay, cool. So in order to parse the JAS language, I used a grammar generator basically, we have Warcraft has a scripting language. So if you're in here and you're looking at your turtles or something, there's a convert to custom texts function here, and you can see like here's my actual default map script for what's going on in this particular Warcraft map. So my thinking was, if I'm going to emulate that, I need my own way of doing that. And some people online, very smart people, said that I probably should not make a parser for the Warcraft scripting language, and instead should make my own engine just parse Lua, because you can just download off-the-shelf Lua parsing, and then use some converter that converts Warcraft scripts to Lua. That's probably a smart thing to do, but I kind of started off from the base assumption that rather than trying to make something better, rather than, someone could just as well tell me that, well, I should make a game that looks like this, and that would look better. And they're right from the standpoint of the sort of always changing technology landscape of like what is, what looks good in terms of emulating what we're used to. But if your goal isn't the best thing for the investors, if your goal is maintaining a hobby from 16 years of your life, so you can kind of always go back to that, in a similar way, during those 16 years of my life, this game did not support Lua. So there was, I think there was actually, after Reforged was announced, they made some patch to it that you could load Lua into it, but in general, for me, that wasn't something I spent a lot of time using. So I figured, I started with the base assumption that I would just try to parse the Warcraft script. And, the Warcraft script is pretty easy to parse. So, when I was writing this parser here, the language pretty much has call function, set variable, set array at index, return variable, really basic loop structure that just has an exit when tag for exiting the loop, local variables, which are, I guess it's a redirect, so it's like defined as a local up here. Local integer x equals 5, and then like globals, again, integer x equals 5. And then some of this stuff here is trying to do order of operations, so it's setting up that, a times b plus c is the same thing as c plus a times b because the multiplication has priority. So the grammar is defined as by saying that summation is a sum of multiplied expressions to sort of order of operations that. So there's a couple of things that are put into this, but using ANTLR here allowed me to have a very high level grammar description of just, here's the grammar, here's how this works. So I tried to do components like that to say, I'm going to have a scripting language, I'm going to have the model parsers, I'm going to try to have rendering of a scene to render like a world like this. And that's sort of unfortunate that I had broken whenever I was running over here, but if I can try to work around that, let's see. Let's see if I can just maybe load hero test as a map. Although, I think the code version I have on this computer might be an experimental branch, and so it's just kind of like, unless if I jump off of the experimental branch, which would probably break something, we could try to figure out where are we at with that. It's loading again. I'm just trying to get ahead of it. I'm figuring out what might crash as it tries to load. Let's see. So I have this like logs folder which gets generated. Kind of looks like it didn't crash. Okay, cool. Yeah. So here we go. Here's my simulation of the game. And you can see, this looks a lot like the original the Warcraft game. I've had people watch me playing this on YouTube who just think, that guy's just playing Warcraft. And it's kind of interesting to tell them, no, it's not. So, for example, when I walk over to this Fountain of Health, you can see that it's healing my guy. If I attack him, he'll probably restore his hit points. See, there is shooting upward, back up to 925. And it's not Warcraft 3, and so similar to that, actually the healing ward aura was contributed by a GitHub contributor. And so I think that's something really cool. You don't see this on Warcraft 3, that no matter how many fans Warcraft 3 has, nobody can just show up and be like, you know what, let's make it better. Only the original author of Warcraft 3 can do that. my simulation is on GitHub. You can download it, and you can say, hey, I want this feature, boop, and you can put that feature in, which is really cool. So I am not the maker of a healing word aura on Warsmash. My version of Warsmash didn't have the ability to heal units that are near to a fountain of health because I didn't bother to program it. I had other things I was doing. But this person made an auras file defined in JSON, and they made a JSON system, so I think they're just using Google JSON, and they started defining ability behaviors in JSON. The thought process there being that you could import your own ability behavior into a map in JSON. How fun is that? So I think if we go to... we got to try to figure out which one of these is healing ward aura, but I think it would probably be HP Gen. Nope. So this is AU. AU is aura unholy from the undead. Let's see. Yeah, here's endurance aura from the orcs. Unfortunately, it's currently, because it is emulating Warcraft, it uses the Warcraft IDs to match against the Warcraft art data. So there's sort of like the Warcraft art and stats. It doesn't have behaviors, and then there's like Warsmash is the software and behaviors that's loading that art and loading some stat files. So the IDs in Warsmash are matching these old four-letter integer constants from Warcraft 3. Pretty straightforward there, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out, is there a HP gen, max HP gen? Let's see. Power of regeneration, probably. So it's probably this one. And I guess this gets back to where the way that this was made, I was trying to picture in my head if I could just make it sort of negative. That instead of max HP gen, it does something else. I mean, so you can paste max mana gen in it, like MP gen. See, so now I did a paste. It used to be HP gen. Now it's MP gen. What that's going to mean, probably, is that all healing word auras regenerate mana, which is just kind of a funny hack, right? We can play the same mission, and we can attack my same guy, and you'll see he'll have that buff, the healing word aura, but it won't heal him, because we just edited. And you can't do that on the original Warcraft, because everything was just a bunch of property maps and a proprietary software. So if I go to the abilities section, and I go to healing word aura, like, it just has amount of hit points regenerated as just a data field. So you couldn't just like hack it and be like, oh, now it regenerates mana. But you know, I just did, because I'm not playing Warcraft 3. Some people, they look at this and say, oh, he's just playing Warcraft 3. Is this some kind of mod? And it's not, you know. The health bar, I don't know if you see this, but on Loradar, where my mouse is right there, the health bar under his name is actually too big. I just didn't fix it yet. You know, I made the health bars pretty big. So let's see if I can actually maximize this window again and then attack this Firelord. But look at that, look at that, look at that. So he's got healing word aura on him, but his health is just really slow. It's just a standard regeneration. It doesn't shoot back up to full. However, if I get him, oh, none of his abilities are castable. Well, okay, that's dumb. But how about this guy? So this guy, if he uses Force of Nature, turns that tree into an N over there, and then walks into this, look at his mana shoot up, even though he has healing word aura, right? Because I just hacked healing word aura and made it restore mana instead. And you know, the other thing that's kind of fun, this is like a vector, so you could, probably a more realistic case would be to make it restore health and mana both. How fun is that? And you can just do that by just adding more entries in the JavaScript array, you know. So that's cool. Well, I guess it's a JSON array. It's not really JavaScript, but JSON came from JavaScript, even though we're not using JavaScript in Warcraft. That's the kind of thing that I was looking for when I started on the project of Warsmash, on top of the problem statement that I gave. So there's kind of these two problems. One problem is trying to preserve the technology so I can keep having the hobby that I enjoy doing. The other problem is overcoming dumb limitations that it used to have. And there were a lot of dumb limitations. So that's why I think it's sometimes fun to sort of just go on the internet and mess around on a YouTube video or something and sort of brag about overcoming dumb limitations and be like, well, you know what, maybe I want healing word aura to regenerate mana. You know, maybe I want these other things to happen. And we've had this stagnated 16 years of, you know, oh, well, the only way to do that would be to give it mana aura. You know, so for example, Fountain of Power is actually in the game. It does that. And the way that it does it is by having mana regeneration and life regeneration auras at the same time. You can't just make one ability that's just the power aura that gives both. But now you could. You know, you just go in there, add more stuff, define it in JSON or something. And there are multiple ways of defining abilities in JSON, or defining abilities in Warsmash, sorry. So JSON is one of the ways to define abilities in Warsmash. I've, in the past, showed making abilities where I just kind of hard-coded them into the engine, which isn't as good because then you can't replace them in a custom mount. But you could still make more. There are various systems like that. And, I've been trying to see what will I settle on is probably the best way to define all of those. I've started thinking, maybe when I already have my scripting language parser in Warsmash, where I sort of parse the Warcraft script, it would be nice to actually just probably define the abilities in the custom scripting language parser that I've already made. So, for example, one of the upsides of that, another thing you could never do in Warcraft 3, is that because Warsmash is made of these components that I had to re-implement all the way along, I have JAS Runner, which is a Warsmash thing that runs the Warcraft script. Some people call it JAS. And it's capable of running a file like main.j over here, which just prints out hello world local value and hello world global value as these two different texts, and has two different functions to print them. But you can't, on Warcraft 3, you can't just run, you can't write something in the Warcraft scripting language and then just run it outside of the game. In my case, because the simulation of the game is compiled from these component parts that I've layered on top, you can take out a part and you can use that. Similarly, one of the things that I used when originally developing Warsmash is I have a system here, sometimes called MDX editor main. And it was never actually turned into an editor, but it looks almost exactly like that program I was showing earlier from 2005, where the guy was loading Warcraft models. And we could go to downloads, perhaps. Downloads folder. What was the name of that turtle? Let's see, it's not sorting the same way. So, Turtle Cannon Cargo. Okay, so it's the letter T. Turtle Cannon Cargo. And you could go in here and you can say, oh, let's open this turtle. You open it up. Here's the turtle. It starts out in kind of its base position, but then you can sort of animate it. And this is fun, because what this is doing is it's calling up the same code of Warsmash, just like we had the entire game simulation, but it simulates one model rendered. And yet, other times when people were doing this, in the in this program right here from 2005, some guy named Magos on the internet tried to remake Warcraft, and he got things wrong. He had like we showed with the Paladin and the hammer not orienting the right way. In the one that I created here, I'm just calling up the game function to render something that I had basically used from the guy's viewer, and so it's the same subroutine used to render the game. And sometimes, I don't know if you guys have this, I could try to turn up the volume, but sometimes you can hear the footsteps. I don't know if you can hear that. For me, it's actually too quiet. But you can hear the footsteps of the turtle as he walks, because the footsteps are actually a model event that makes footstep sounds. And so the portions of the game like that, the same functions are getting called from this window viewer, like a model viewer is just a window. And so there's it's better, in my opinion, for custom game modding if you have the entire technology stack of the game as this open source program you can take bits and pieces out of and run them at a time and try different things with them, as opposed to like the stuck in 2002 system that never moves forward, despite the fact that I'm sort of constraining myself to the 2002 graphics, and I'm constraining myself to perhaps this bad idea of a custom scripting language that is very, very simple. One of the things you notice in Warcraft's old scripting language that I based my parser on is that functions are called function, and the end of a function is end of function, and they don't even have curly braces like Java or Java or JavaScript or C++ or any of those sort of dialects of software writing. So a lot of people hate it that have used the game for a long time, but it's sort of simple. People can get into it. I think it's perhaps easier to get into, but more wasteful or time-consuming to try to master. Whereas something like C++ was harder to get into, but somebody who masters it, perhaps it's easier to accomplish that, or something of the way that the syntax elements interact with pointers and other stuff. So there are design choices like that have gone into this technology stack that is ultimately the Warsmash mod engine repo on my GitHub. And then I link these videos on my YouTube of me just running around and playing what looks like Warcraft. And yet, all the way along, for me, it's really cool. I get frustrated in a video like this. This is a video of me playing Warsmash. Just was on that Warsmash GitHub, where you can see when my mouse is over this fish man over here. This would never happen on Warcraft 3. When my mouse is over the fish man, look at his health bar. His health bar jumps up and down based on which animation he's playing. And I've had this problem for like a year or something. You'd never have that on Warcraft 3, but it's a problem that I have because I had to reinvent literally everything. There weren't health bars, and like I was saying, the health bars are too fat. And if you don't like that, you can go and change it. So I can go into the Melee UI file that defines the user interface for a Melee game, and I can, position health bar is a function I made that figures out where to put the health bar. And it's kind of hacked together because another thing similar to my own scripting language over here, Warcraft has its own user interface language. So if you look at resources, frame def, smash UI, maybe you could find an example here, but and maybe like tooltip, open with text editor. Similar to the scripting language, there was a sort of document frame format that was used in Warcraft. So you can see like the tooltip is like a frame that has like a backdrop as one of its sort of div element type of things that is defining like which types of corners and styles the background portion uses. And then there's like text on top that's like a title, and then there's like text that's like contents. And so this is kind of doing, and then I guess I also have there's tooltip and tooltip icon resource. I'm trying to remember what tooltip icon resource even is, but oh yeah, tooltip icon resource. So like if something costs gold in your tooltip, it has to spawn one of these in to be like the little gold cost. And then hover tip is like if you mouse over a hero, I think that's like hovering the little hero name. So like there's these interface definition files, and a file like this actually I created, but I created it in the same format, like sort of again this idea similar to somebody who builds an 8-bit game, it looks like an old Mario or something, like constraining yourself to an old style of doing something, but then trying to do more things in that style. So that's kind of some of the things that I was sometimes doing, and that's where there are ways for making a user interface on the libgdx engine that we generated the project in, but rather than doing it in sort of the libgdx style of way for the most part, I was parsing out the Warcraft format and sometimes writing more files of my own in the Warcraft format to define things that, as far as I can tell, are just hard-coded in the C++ and Blizzard's game. I don't know, but I mean I just kind of made up stuff. So basically, those are kind of the components that go together into this. And so, like I was saying, the user interface is a little bit more complex than you maybe ideally would be. So like if you look at this, for example, it's spawning a health bar over the head of a unit in the user interface is like 15 lines of code. That's maybe not ideal, but it's wrapped in a function, position health bar, so you can just put a single health bar, hopefully faster. So anyway, part of my point was that this is modifiable, and sometimes when I have something like this that's modifiable, it still ends up being, despite its modability, non-ideal. So for example, this could probably be written better. There's probably some better way to express the health bar. It's a little rectangular bar. It shouldn't really be that hard. But for now, this is what I have. My solutions are my solutions. They're not the world's best solutions. They're just things that I came up with. But we could change the height here. I think this would make health bars bigger or something. Let's say it's 32 instead of 16. It should be twice the height. And probably when we play the game, then we'll have tall health bars because you can just go in and hack. So you probably don't really want to make tall health bars, but something you might want to do if you're hacking Warsmash and making your own fork of it, maybe you want to have mana bars under units. And obviously that's like a little bit better of a thing to do. It was really hard to do that on Warcraft. There were some people online who tried to use like disassemblers on Warcraft or something and hack it so that when you have like a hero running around, you see his health and you see his mana under it. And Blizzard's Reforged added that because, it turns out that's a really useful feature to have. But, yeah, look at this. Look at that. So I made his health bar really, really fat. That's kind of stupid. You wouldn't really want it to be that fat. But you can tell it already was maybe too tall. And so part of the problem, I think, there is it seems to be it's a hard-coded pixel height. And, maybe it shouldn't be a hard-coded pixel height. But I think it's interesting when we talk about like mana bars. So somebody was talking about mana bars on Warcraft, and it's like very frustrating and difficult to do that because it just isn't. This one, if we mouse over something and we position health bar on the unit, You could imagine like having the source code for the game just makes stuff so much easier. So similar to position health bar, let's just make a position mana bar function, right? And it'd be easy, it'd be fast. We might have it done while I talk in the next 2 minutes. And yet there are people on actual Warcraft who are probably playing it right now who are trying to rebel against the Reforged and play the old one, and yet they're stuck. They can't move forward, and they don't have mana bars, and they don't want to run disassembled binaries from China, and they can't do this. They can't just say, I'm going to copy position health bar, and I'm going to make position mana bar. How hard is that even to do? Honestly, there's two problems. Okay, there's two problems. One of them is we need to make it, instead of life ratio remaining, it should use the mana ratio remaining. So we have to change, when we look up the unit life, to be mana. And so then here's another problem, actually. Position health bar was positioning over a widget. So I don't know, people watching this, they might not be familiar with what I'm describing, but in Warcraft there's something called a unit. The little heroes, the little minions, they're all units in Warcraft. There are other things that aren't units. Trees are not units. Items that you pick up and put in your inventory are not units. And so they made this base type called widget that is anything that has like a little model in the world that can be destroyed. Widgets were pretty much like things with health bars that you can kill in the world or smash, but and also click on. Maybe some of them have the clickability turned off. It's sort of a widget. And then on top of that, there's units and there's items and there's destructibles. It's a very simple hierarchy. Destructible being just a generic thing that describes trees and other things that aren't units and don't have tons of complex statistics and are just kind of a smashable thing, like barrels that you bust open and items pop out are considered destructibles. So in that very simple hierarchy, I constructed a similar one in Warsmash, and so there's something called a widget here. So you can see when I try to position a mana bar, it wants to be able to do a widget health bar originally, and not all widgets have mana bars. Only render units actually have health bars. So we have to change our function to describe a unit. Then once we do that, we can do simulation unit of that, and then we have access to all the game functions. So I can just be like, oh, get its mana. And I have autofill in my code editor. They don't do that on Warcraft. It's stupid. All right, anyway, so yeah, get simulation unit, get maximum mana or something like that. Sorry, I just mashed the end keyboard on my thing for a second. Didn't mean to do that. Got a newer keyboard this year. It's fun, but it's a slightly different layout. Sorry. Anyway, get simulation unit, get max mana. So you just go down here to maximum mana, right? So suddenly now I have the ratio of the mana to fill the mana bar. That took like 3 minutes, But how many years? 16 years of people that don't have mana bars. I'm about to do it right now. So this is our ratio remaining. So then we set the color to that. So that's another interesting thing. Your mana bar, you probably don't want it to be the same color as the health bar. But we can just, this is just setting the color. So obviously it was doing a math function where it used to be it would be green and it would fade to red as that emptied out. And so there was this kind of idea that in RGB, it's the 3 component colors of light in computers, the R was this minimum function I had created that's basically saying the green will be from whatever is smaller, 1.0, so we start at fully green, or 2 minus however much life is remaining times 2. And so once you get past the halfway mark, it starts subtracting away the green. And the red is kind of similar, except it's not negative. So once you get past the halfway mark, it would start becoming red, basically. And so that's all fine, but we don't actually probably want to do any of that. What if we just say RGB of 0 green, 0 red, and 1 blue? So it's just a blue bar. It's just very easy to do that. And so now I have a blue bar, and that blue bar is pursuant to the amount of mana in the unit that it will show. And that's all pretty good. And then I guess maybe the hard part is when we set where it is. So it was setting to the unprojected X and Y coordinate from the screen coordinate vector of where the unit is. And so this takes unit XYZ, and I'm using it was called click location, and that's kind of dumb. I mean, maybe this should be renamed, but it's basically trying to avoid memory allocation. And so I use a vector that's already on the heap, figure out XYZ of the unit, and then within that existing memory to avoid more allocations, change its contents to convert to screen coordinates, so we have X and Y on the screen to figure out where the unit is. So I'm doing all that, that's all fine, but basically the Y height of that should be lower. We know we were just looking at the height is 16 on the hit point bar, so the mana bar should probably be minus 16 to be below that. That's pretty good. Now that we know that, we can go back to where we position health bar, and get HP bar is like a function that gets these HP bars and just recycles them. So honestly, they're just generic bars. I think we can just literally call the same function and then just say, yeah, pretty much just call the same function. So I'm just going to have simple status mana bar, and then I'm going to call position mana bar. And then the other thing we probably want to do with that is, here we do position mana bar. It says I can't call it on a widget, because we don't know is the thing that I moused over a widget or a unit. So I'm just going to put a little silly hack in here that says if mouse over unit is an instance of render unit, then we're going to do this, and we'll just do a cast to a render unit. And, you know, there's actually a case to be made. I remember somebody once telling me that instance of leads to bad software. So you could probably also use a visitor pattern, say mouse over unit visit, but I hadn't implemented that for render units, I guess. I think I only implemented it for the simulation. So I try to split the simulation. In theory, somebody might want to run a Warsmash, like run the game logic without rendering the game. I've never really tested that, so it probably doesn't work, but I've tried to leave open the door for that to happen in the future. So each unit has actually two parts, a render unit and a simulation unit, and the render unit is just in charge of that 3D model and that and the, sort of the space. The simulation unit is like all of his stats and health and those sorts of things. Anyway, so now we probably did it. Now we can probably go in the game, and maybe we have mana bars. What did that take, like 5 minutes? Maybe 10 minutes. You know, but not very long is my point. And you can't, I don't know how to do that on Warcraft 3. I've interacted with the Warcraft 3 proprietary game for 20-something years, and the only way I would do it is just playing Reforged, because the Reforged developers at it. But what if somebody else wants another bar? You know, what if they have shields, and they want a shield bar, and a mana bar, and a health bar, and they want them all independent? You know, that's hard to do. Hey, look at that, a mana bar! Haha! See, and here's, you know, obviously the really interesting part is, does the mana bar fall when I actually cast a spell? But look at that, it does. See, look, he's got a little mana bar under his name, and the mana bar is reduced when I summon the water elemental, and the water elemental doesn't have any mana. So this points out another problem. I did it wrong. Mana bar is showing even if the unit doesn't have mana. That's pretty easy to fix. So if I just take the mouse over unit and I convert that to render unit variable. Okay, my auto variable generator is trying to replace all occurrences. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to say this is render unit. So if I take this render unit, maybe I only want to do this stuff if render unit get maximum, get simulation unit, sorry, maximum mana, greater than 0. So if they have mana, then we're going to do this, and I'll move the code into that. I mean, that's great, right? And so now I can just, boop, pop it open, run it, and I've modified the game. And you can't, nobody knows how to modify the game of Warcraft in that same way, except for the Chinese people that disassemble binaries, and I don't even know if that's legal in my country. I don't want to do it. It just seems unfun, the level of complexity that you would have to go to do that. Fundamentally, even if you can figure it out, the code to do it doesn't read like English, like the code that I was trying to read. And maybe for some people, Java doesn't read like English. Maybe for some people, the code that I was just hacking is just gobbledygook, and they don't understand it. But for me, I do understand it, and so that's kind of fun. So here, if I summon the water elemental only has a health bar, but my guy has a mana bar. See, that's fun. So I can also fix the behavior of my mana bar extremely easily if I wanted to do something different. And that's just, you know, it's just fun to me. So I hope this video, you know, it's explanatory for anybody who wants to understand what Warsmash is, but essentially, it's like me trying to take the entire game and implement that again as in from software entirely, so that it's running not the Warcraft 3 game, it's running a libgdx program that simulates these older technologies and stimulates the mannerisms so that I can emulate the game and ultimately go beyond what was possible and sort of move forward in a tangential direction from Reforged. So Reforged is sort of moving forward with the world. You know, Reforged is like almost maybe making it more like Unreal Engine. You know, I think I heard that when they copied in the physics-based rendering shader stuff, that they got it from Unreal Engine or something like that. I don't know for sure, but they change the graphics and those sorts of things, and they try to appease that style of people. And I've noticed, I think there's a paradigm shift on the Warcraft modding sites. Like if you go to resources models over here, there's a whole section of people who are making 3D characters that have those metallic sheens. Here's what somebody made, Illyria. Look at this. So this has like the same kind of metallic shines on them. So there are legions of people out there that what they feel called to do is that kind of moving forward technologically. Where they're okay with this idea that their character is going to have this fancy metallic shader thing on it. I don't think so. Then we get back to where the guy who made this viewer program for viewing things on this website did not spend all of his time on Reforged. He made it support Reforged in the last couple of years before he disappeared. But I think it's easy for him to feel underappreciated, and he's probably kind of right about it. When all the sort of less experienced users show up, and what they want to do is have their World of Warcraft characters in shiny metallic sheens, and it's really in favor of this idea that people who interacted with the previous technology are just gonna throw it away. So let me see if this can render this character. I didn't download the textures or something. Let's see. What do we got in terms of? Well, there are textures in that folder. I'm not sure what the problem is. So my program doesn't apparently render this correctly. Apparently it's solid black. But I got the metallic sheens in here. I dunked around with that a little bit. You can see like the metal armor here has got like it'll turn white from certain angles. I did a little of that, for fun. But the learning about shaders for me was not something that I was doing for the purpose of throwing away the past. I just thought it was novel and interesting, and there are people who ask for it. But in terms of the bulk of my time on this type of hobby now, I've more so been trying to preserve and have that kind of Warsmash idea where I can go and modify things. Add a bar if I want, add tons of bars. Mono bars, whatever bars. You can have all the bars I want. You still can't do that on Reforged. Maybe they might be able to figure it out, but there's a couple things that got added to Reforged for modding, but it's kind of hard to do. It's still a proprietary system. Sometimes you're guessing in the dark about how it works, and then if you figure it out, something else randomly breaks, and you can't unbreak it. So that hopefully is some description of Warsmash. I think maybe I've been talking for too long, and so I actually probably couldn't use this video in the context of sending it to someone in sort of a professional sense for like a resume. That just seems like that would be difficult. It probably exceeded their attention span. But hopefully the video is interesting for anybody who wants to try to understand what was I working on, what am I doing. It's this kind of idea of rewriting Warcraft III, given the modding tools that exist, to try to continue to have the hobbies that we have. There are bright artists who have made tons of Warcraft models on this site who recently have, I think I've heard of this happening multiple times, although I haven't always followed the drama, who go in and delete all of their assets when they sort of realize that they exist in a system where sort of top level down, the people in charge at Activision do not appreciate them. I think that's maybe hard to swallow if you think about you're creating something on a system that you just ultimately the investors are going to steamroll you and throw everything you do in the trash. But hopefully with a little bit of luck and a whole bunch of software, I might finish this project that I've been working on for 4 or 5 years, and maybe we'll have a really good emulator so that no matter what happens to the original game, the emulator will always allow us to more or less have about the same experience that somebody would have had playing the 2002 game on the computers of tomorrow. I guess I might step away for a second here just to pick up something, but I had an interesting experience recently where I was hanging out actually, frivolous kind of purchase, but I got this Raspberry Pi, this little computer. It's like the size of my fist. And you can actually play Warsmash on there. I played Warsmash on there. And I thought that was really funny to think, I mean, this is a desktop computer with enough graphic capability and hardware components that you can run. You plug it into a monitor and a keyboard and play Warsmash on there. So, I mean, on some level, the computers of tomorrow don't have to be very big for us to preserve 2002's hobbies. The chip inside of a Raspberry Pi is an ARM chip. So if we look in here, like it's a little simple computer. I don't know if you guys can see that, but a very, very simple little computer. And it runs as an ARM chip in there, a little processor. And so Warcraft 3, the original game, doesn't run on that because it's an x86. It's an Intel. We just have the binaries. There's just the Intel binary, and as the world moves forward, as creative, bright minds are crushed under the weight of phone society, we might see a future where Microsoft is under pressure to stop doing Intel architectures. And I just think, it seems like in the next 10 or 20 years, there are a lot of different ways that technology could go, but a lot of them are bad directions. And so if things go in a bad direction, now that Microsoft owns the whole vertical stack of Windows and Warcraft and pretty much everything in between, they could just change Windows to make it that you're not allowed to play the old Warcraft anymore. So, I mean, for me, it's sort of fascinating. When I talk about 2002 technology, I spin it right up and here it is. And when I talk about 2005 technology, I spin it right up and here it is. But it's almost conceivable to me that another couple of years, maybe this company would, Microsoft, now that Microsoft has sort of become the everything company, and they own ChatGPT, and so maybe they're going to own the minds of people in the future who create software, and then they own the software, like Warcraft, and then they own the computer, the operating system underneath. We're getting to this point where whatever that becomes, that might be something that becomes hostile to people who think today that they can rebel against Activision. Now that Activision is technically the same company or a subsidiary of the same company that owns everything that happens on their computer. So it makes sense to me to be able to say, here's a little computer this big, and I can plug it in a monitor and a keyboard and mouse, and I can play my simulation of how things used to be. I find that to be enjoyable and cool. So that's the kind of thing that Warsmash makes possible. And it's not, there's a lot of work to do. So to be honest, if you watch this video and you get really inspired and you go and buy a Raspberry Pi and you try to play Warsmash on it, it's not going to work. Right now, it only worked for me knowing how to actually change the code, recompile a few things, stub out some different software libraries and make sure it all goes. But you can't do any of that on Warcraft 3, right? Like you can't take Warcraft 3 and say, here, I'm going to run it on a different type of computer and I'm going to replace the dependencies so that it still works, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's a proprietary piece of software, and so it's less likely for it to be preserved, although there are many people who try to preserve it. And so I hope that with my project, I allow my hobby to continue to exist. Hopefully that's interesting to people. If anybody ever wondered what the heck is Warsmash really, what's going on Redditor's YouTube channel, maybe now you have a bit more of a backstory that I'm trying to simulate. And I do not promise you that I will always be here doing that. Like I said, I anticipate that there are many things in the world. The world might try to make me stop, and they might successfully make me stop working on what I do. I think in the last year or so, I've done a lot less, But I think it's fun to talk about technology, and it's fun to try to preserve our hobbies, Same kind of reason people have museums, and you would hope if there's ever a museum that has Warcraft 3 in it that they would probably just run the original one. You would hope that keeps working. Excuse me. But if it doesn't, if we get to a future where the government bans any Intel chip and says everything has to be ARM and everything has to be that the user is not root or some nonsense, and everything basically has to be a phone. I don't know. If something crazy happens in the future, if things just don't go the way you want, knowing that you can just download the source code of Warsmash, even though it doesn't run as well as Warcraft 3 yet, in my opinion, makes it it makes a difference, and it's a difference that I don't think other people appreciate very much. So there's a Warsmash server, actually. You can, I don't know how many people know this, but if you want to play Warsmash with your friends, if we get back to like the game that I had just run, maybe I'll run this again and just talk about the server a little bit. I have a server component, and my server component allows me to play with other people if they have Warsmash. And right now, there's not a desync checker. So you have to make sure, you have to manually make sure that you and the person you play with are on the same version of the assets, because there's unit stats in there. So Warsmash doesn't provide you. I mean, legally, I'm not the provider of Warcraft 3. So when you download Warsmash and you have Boar Stonebreaker, the Mountain King. Boar Stonebreaker is like a Blizzard Entertainment intellectual property, and his hit points are 1375 at level 10. And the things that define that as a set of information are Blizzard things that I don't own. So in order to play Warsmash, there's always this constraint that I didn't talk about very much in this video, that obviously you have to get Warcraft 3. And I'm not a provider of that. So anybody who downloads Warsmash, they're going to download something that doesn't work until they put Warcraft 3 into it. So it's sort of manual. If you want to play it over the internet with your friend, you and your friend need to get the same version of Warcraft 3 and the same version of Warsmash. And right now, my server doesn't really check that. It checks maybe that you're on the same version of Warsmash, but one version of Warsmash can emulate 10 different versions of Warcraft 3. So there's some effort there, but if you go to the Warsmash menu screen and you go to Battle.net, whatever, like it's not Battle.net anymore. Now you can see the default gateway is warsmash.net. And maybe in the future we'll make it that you can actually click to change that gateway. This little change button, it doesn't work right now, but if you need to change it, you can change it in a text file. It's always in your Warcraft or in your Warsmash installation called warsmash.ini. And then by doing that, you can log in to Warsmash multiplayer, and you have your message of the day. Thank you for connecting to the first draft of the Warsmash game server. And maybe if you want a different message of the day, you can go into like Warsmash code over here where we have Warsmash-server, and I imagine somewhere in here there's user manager, client builder. It's been a while actually since I implemented this, but let's see if I can find thank you with a control F. Nope. I'm forgetting where it is. Oh yeah, this is constructed with welcome message as an argument. Okay, so gaming network server main. Yeah, okay, here we go. So in the main function that just kind of runs the server, there's a welcome message. Thank you for connecting the first draft of Warsmash. So you could change the message of the day to whatever you want. But other than that, I'm loading, and again, this is like I said, where the way that I'm loading this interface is with this FDF parser function. So this is like it's a custom thing I wrote using Antler. I guess I didn't open it in Antler style thing. Yeah, here we go. Got some syntax highlighting. So the actual frames, the interface, and this is sort of why Activision in Reforged they replaced Warcraft with a menu or with a website made in like Chromium and React Native or whatever. I'm just loading the old 2002 games menu files here, and so like the way that I'm doing that is just again this parser that I had written, which is sort of parsing these sort of frame def statements. And they're kind of straightforward, so it's like frame whatever, and then that's a frame, and then frames can have frames inside of them, and so I sort of recursively define that by saying that a frame element is something that can be a frame or all this other stuff, and then a frame itself is like type qualifiers, curly brace, frame element, close curly brace. So there's these custom syntaxes of things, but basically it creates that. Apparently there was a game here on Warsmash called YGGYG. I don't know what game that is. I'm not sure who's hosting that. Lost in Money. Oh, Lost in Money is over here. I'm going to say hi. I don't know who that is. There was, at least once before, there was a bug in the Warsmash server, so there was like a game that just sat open like this. Yeah, I actually did not expect. Most of the time when I check this server, in the log files, it says that there are no users. There are not people hosting games on Warsmash. It's very uncommon. So I don't know who Lost 10 Money is, but Warsmash at the moment is a publicly downloadable thing, and so it's very interesting to me actually that while I'm making this video, there was a game up. I really think I saw this bug before, and I don't remember the nature of the bug. But this gets to everything on Warsmash, the software, the interaction of what's happening, is my attempt to rewrite it. And so I think there's a bug in these game lobbies where Lost 10 Money might have created the game lobby and then quit out of it, and he might not really be sitting here, whoever that is. And then when I joined his lobby, I might be joining a dead thing that shouldn't be there. There's some like cleanup process for empty lobbies that should die and don't, or something like that. It's very possible. So I'm just saying that I don't usually anticipate that when you go on warsmash.net that there would actually be someone there hosting a game. And that's an interesting thought, right? So it's just kind of an interesting thing to talk about, that there aren't like a lot of users of Warsmash. It's not that common right now, and it's for a pretty good reason, because you get more crashes. So when we talk about just trying to run like a Warcraft map, so like I was drafting this map with all these turtles and whatever, right? Okay, so this is my example map, and now it's telling me that I can't. What is that? What the heck is that? Okay, so apparently my super green turtle is a very bad unit, and it has a very bad format. We're going to delete it. And put some more. There's some kind of world editor bug on that one, but cool. So I fixed that. I saved my map. You can have a map like that, and then right now in my orc burrow directory, Warsmash data, I have a folder where if I put the map, we can probably find it. So if I go back to Warsmash, I can play that map. So anyway, part of what I'm just trying to say at the end here with this example map is that Warsmash almost can drop in and play your Warcraft map that you made on Warcraft without really having to change it. Just kind of converts it like on the fly and just like run in Warsmash. But there are sometimes incompatibilities, things where that almost works, but maybe doesn't. And the source of the incompatibilities is typically things that I didn't implement yet. I mean, you think about on Reforged, sometimes there are bugs, and those bugs are happening because oh, like look at this, it crashed. It was a really simple map I'm trying to play. I don't know why that crashed. I'm surprised. I thought it would just work. And so when it crashes, like your Warcraft 3 map crashes, a lot of times that you don't know why either. You're just like, oh, drat, my Warcraft 3 map crashed. Oh, drat, what'll I do about that? And then you go and like troll some forum, and the forum people tell you, whoa, we can't help you, nobody knows. What am I looking at? I'm looking at some kind of stale error log. There should be... So obviously this isn't doing what I think it's doing because... Well, it's okay. It runs in the assets folder. Oh, well, okay, over here. Just legacy name. What is this? Oh, I had this problem. I think I'm on an old version. Yeah, create unit at lock is supposed to be create unit at lock by name or something like that. I think that'll fix it. There was some kind of scripting typo and I was editing the script functions. So anyway, actually that's exactly to my point. So when you try to run a map from Warcraft, you might have seen in that error pop-up that the Warcraft map automatically generates a script file that defines the map setup and what's happening, and there are a bunch of automatic contents of that script file. And so if Warsmash is trying to be an emulator of Warcraft, look at that. Here's my turtle army, my super green turtles, and they have my mana bars from the other version of this. So like you can see the mana bar of the turtle. And you can even maybe cast Crushing Wave, but maybe not, because apparently Crushing Wave doesn't work. I think that's my fault that it doesn't work. I think I broke it. And you know what? Apparently when I drag select, we don't have the mana bar, and when I mouse over, we do. And so there's like bugs like that. I should probably fix that bug with the mana bar, so it's kind of weird. Yeah, anyway, so my point is, sometimes there are incompatibilities. Like, Crushing Wave doesn't work. Well, why doesn't Crushing Wave work? That's really silly. Crushing Wave should work. We know what Crushing Wave does. Anybody who knows, anybody who actually just reads the description sends a gigantic wave that deals 150 damage to each enemy unit in a line, up to 900 damage. So we know what it's supposed to do. Somebody should program it to do that. And to be honest, I think there is code to do that in Warsmash that one of the contributors made, because they made Carrion Swarm, and I think Crushing Wave is just Carrion Swarm. And maybe, there's some missing link there in Warsmash or something. So Warsmash has a bunch of that where things almost work. Look at this paladin. He has like divine shield or something. That's cool. He can turn invulnerable, and then my footman can't attack him. Now on Warcraft 3, it would show an error and say unable to attack that target or something. That target is invulnerable. On Warsmash right now, the targeting system is just going through the paladin in case maybe if he had a footman behind him. Let's get a different paladin because that guy's on cooldown now. So if I have my paladin here and I try to attack through him, I'll just attack the footman behind him because that's currently how Warsmash is. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe that's not a good targeting system. You can go in and change the priorities of targeting because it's just something I made up of just this is how I would do it probably. It's kind of a rough estimate. Or like when Divine Shield wore off, one of the contributor who made a bunch of abilities on Warsmash, I thought that was really cool, and I merged his changes. Somewhere in his changes, I think there was a bug that got introduced that when a buff like Divine Shield wears off, you see its death animation or phase, and then you see its death animation again. I don't remember exactly why. Perhaps I don't know if it was the combination of factors, something I wrote, and another author looks at it and changes something, and the end result is broken. It's probably because I did it wrong to start with. But that's those types of incompatibilities happen when you try to rewrite the entire system from nothing, and I think that's very sensible. And so sometimes those are harder to fix than bugs on Reforged because people complain about Reforged bugs, and the bugs that Reforged has are like literally some guy just broke it. Like he went into a system that worked and then he changed something without being aware of the consequences, and he makes it stop working. Warsmash never worked to begin with. So that's a little bit different, right? Things that don't work typically never work to begin with. So actually, Divine Shield is an interesting one because it did work and then it was maybe broken in Floor Press. But like Crushing Wave, I never implemented Crushing Wave. The contributor might have implemented Crushing Wave, but it's probably written in a way that it's loading. There was a map I had made that I was trying to play in hurry, and I made it that Carrion Swarm that has this do nothing icon, and specific to Carrion Swarm that it just loads this do nothing clickability because I was trying to fire a game event of clicking in a map I was testing years ago, and I never went back and implemented actual Carrion Swarm. So until you replace like the behavioral link for what that ability does with the one made by the contributor that's like good, you're gonna have that sort of problem. But despite those incompatibilities, Warsmash is functional enough that you can probably get in a multiplayer game. You can probably do stuff with it. And there are all sorts of things that will go wrong. And it won't fully implement or emulate Warcraft 3, but it tries. And as time goes on, maybe I'll get even better at trying. It has the capacity to evolve. It has the freedom for the user to download Warsmash and change it. And I think that's cool in a way that Warcraft 3 doesn't have. So that's my long-winded description of what it is and what I'm doing. And I hope you guys have a great day. I hope that's inspiring for anybody who sees that and thinks, you can do whatever you want. This is 2024. There's all kinds of information on the internet. Do you want to write your own Warcraft? Great, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. And under the hood, I'm borrowing code from somebody who spent 7 years figuring out how to render the game. And during those 7 years, I was figuring out how to edit character models and other things and modding games. So realistically, what's going on in Warsmash is like, it's like I edited so much Warcraft that I just thought, why don't I write down what I know? And that doesn't exactly match Warcraft. It's not, you could picture somebody who wanted the same outcome could get there by taking Warcraft 3's binary program and then disassembling that program into some kind of, disassembler thing that they can read, and then reading through that and like trying to write something that matched what they disassembled. I didn't do that. I find that less interesting. For me, what's fun is to kind of be inventive about it. And so, like we did with the monobars. You could imagine that you could go to Reforged and try to like disassemble Reforged or something and figure out how they did monobars. But I didn't do that. I made a monobar by just thinking, I'll make another bar and I'll just minus the y coordinate down below it. Just like think of it my own, straightforward. So the result of, my way of doing things of just, I'll just do it how I think about it. Maybe the way that this turtle walks around that turtle is not as optimal of a pathing as what you'd find on Warcraft 3, because I just used A-star pathfinding off of Wikipedia. Right, so, like, I don't have Warcraft 3, and Warsmash is not Warcraft 3. And so my GitHub project is not the source code of Warcraft 3 on GitHub. But it's the source code of this interesting emulator stand-in that you might sometimes be able to use instead of Warcraft 3 if you wanted to. And it's probably going to crash more. Probably have some frustrations for the user. And I'm not totally sure that I would advise the users to use it yet. I really still think we might be a couple years out of where it's like a really good solution to the problem, just covers all the bases. So for example, I just never bothered to make the map ping, where you could like click here and click the map and ping. And I didn't bother to make the box on the map that shows where your camera is. That wouldn't even really be that hard to do. I just didn't do it. You know, instead I was like hanging out on YouTube or something. You know, so there's all these little bits that go into something, and in sort of trying to reinvent the technology stack of Warcraft. You know, there's a bunch of consequences to that, but despite Warsmash, you know, probably only implementing 40% of the script APIs of Warcraft or something like that, if you are okay with constraining yourself to those 40% and seeing what you can do, you might be able to do something pretty cool. And you might be able to do things that Warcraft 3 cannot do, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so that's pretty much you know, what Warsmash is, and how it came to be, what I'm trying to accomplish, and what kind of technological work I've done. Hopefully that's insightful for people. Maybe that'll teach them stuff. Yeah, and sometimes, look at this, I got double peasants. I got 2 town halls. That's because I was testing a scripting API change. I think if you download Warsmash off of GitHub, it won't do that. It'll just have 1 town hall. You know, there's just things like that. Like, oh, I just made a map and then I played it. Now I have 2 town halls. Well, why is that? Well, you know, I was just hacking away at something I broke. And I've since then fixed it on this other computer next to me. I have another computer I sometimes work on. So, you know, there's lots of different factors like that. But anyway, thank you. I hope that's inspiring. You know, follow your dreams, do what you want to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And probably what I want to do isn't what you want to do. You know, a lot of people, they do their own thing. But hopefully it's at least fun. You know, I've said this in other videos. There's kind of 2 camps of people. Those who want to mod Warcraft and those who want to make a new game. And a lot of the times, Warsmash doesn't really help either of them, because the people who want to mod Warcraft, they look at Warsmash and they're like, okay, but if I play on Warsmash, then my friend can't join my game because my friend is on Reforged. So Warsmash doesn't work. And I have to just agree with them. Like, okay, if that's how you define working, then yeah, Warsmash doesn't work. Because you can only play Warsmash with your friend if your friend is also playing Warsmash, right? I mean, that's sort of how it works when you build a new system. And the other group of people who want to make a new game, they look at Warsmash and they say, I can't, like, legally, if you take Warsmash and you slap different art on it, and then you try to sell it as a Steam game, and I have had people tell me they want to do that, probably you'd be in a really legally gray area where, like, maybe Activision would come after you. Like, I don't really think that's a good idea. The way to do that, in my opinion, would be to borrow the components of Warsmash that I created without the influence of Warcraft 3. So things where I cannot know what Warcraft 3 does, like pathfinding around trees. So like when I select this knight and I tell him to go to the other side of the tree, he kind of runs around there, okay? And that function of him finding where to go, I wrote that, okay? And there is nothing that about me writing that where I knew what Warcraft 3 did. It's not exposed in Warcraft 3's map editor, so just from years playing the game, I don't know how it works on Warcraft 3. And I can tell you, I have seen a couple of times, my system for pathfinding like that is worse than Warcraft 3, which kind of is stupid. Why is somebody 20 years ago doing better at this than I am? And the answer is, I'm just a hobbyist on the internet. I didn't spend all of my time on Warsmash, on pathfinding. I did once try replacing the pathfinding algorithm with another one, and I didn't quite finish. And I think it's maybe sitting in a branch on my GitHub you could find. Maybe you could use that, and maybe it's really fast. It was based on a GitHub contributor who said, why don't you use this one? And I was like, okay. But I never figured out how to make the units go around the other units with that. It was really optimized for obstacles, and it was really good at obstacles. It was like, it's super fast, but the units just like run into each other and stand still or something. So, I mean, if you were going to make your own RTS and put it on Steam, I don't know that Warsmash is a good idea right now. At least until if I clean up the code and create 2 GitHub projects, and one of them is Warsmash system internals, and one of them is Warcraft III shim. And I think that's a good design. Like, ending up there is good. But right now, those 2 kind of parts are just kind of in the same folder. And it's hard to separate. And so, like, because it's hard to separate, you probably don't want to. You could try, but it might be easier to just learn the things that I learned and make your own game. And it's also fun. So, you know, there's that. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of my thought process. I'm doing what I'm doing. You're going to do what you're going to do. But I hope you have a good day. And, you know, get inspired. Do what you want to do. So obviously I'm doing what I want to do, even if it's stupid. And someday somebody's going to tell me it's stupid, and maybe I'll do something different. But you probably have something different that you want to do. And you probably want to figure out what that is, you know, and yeah, so that's one thought process. Or, you know, if you're just somebody interested in me and what I know how to do professionally, hopefully this is given a pretty good description, you know, that by creating a tech stack that emulates something else, I've done a bunch of really interesting work and created an interesting result, and it's never going to be profitable. I went into it knowing it would never be profitable. But it's a lot of fun sometimes. So, you know, it's pretty good. And yeah, I just hope you have a good one.